Hey everyone, All in Arrowhead here. Week 7 brought some jaw-dropping finishes, big individual performances, and plenty of games that kept fans on the edge of their seats. The Eagles leaned on their explosive passing attack to take down the Vikings, while the Broncos escaped a tough Giants squad with late-game heroics. The Chargers couldn't overcome the Colts' relentless ground game, and the Cowboys flexed both offensive and defensive muscle against the Commanders. The Panthers' defense stepped up in a tight win over the Jets, forcing crucial stops at key moments, and the Bengals pulled out another nail-biter against the Steelers, proving they can execute when it matters most. Meanwhile, the Packers showed poise in a close contest with the Cardinals, highlighting a passing game that refuses to back down under pressure. All in all, my picks have been holding up well, and it's been an exciting stretch to track the trends and outcomes so far this season. With the Cardinals, Lions, Jaguars, Raiders, Rams, and Seahawks on bye, several teams have a chance to recharge and make adjustments before critical Week 8 matchups. Momentum is shifting for many teams, and individual players are starting to emerge as difference makers. Every game this week could have playoff implications, and the stage is set for another weekend full of clutch performances, defensive stands, and explosive scoring opportunities. Let's get into the games! The Vikings come into this matchup after a 28-22 loss to the Eagles, where Carson Wentz threw for 313 yards and a touchdown, but was picked off twice, including a costly interception return for a score by Jalix Hunt, and the team struggled to convert in the red zone, settling for 5 field goals on 6 trips inside the 20-yard line. Minnesota's rushing attack was inconsistent, with Jordan Mason contributing 57 yards and a score, but failing to sustain drives when the Eagles stacked the box, and the offensive line struggled to protect Wentz on critical third downs. Defensively, the Vikings had trouble containing Jalen Hurts and the Eagles' wideouts, allowing A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith to combine for 304 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns, while the pass rush registered just 1 sack on a hot quarterback. The Chargers, meanwhile, fell 38-24 to the Colts, giving up 23 unanswered points in the first half and allowing Jonathan Taylor to rush for 3 touchdowns, while Justin Herbert threw for 286 yards and 3 scores, but couldn't overcome the early deficit. Los Angeles also struggled to generate consistent pressure on the Colts' offensive line, and their secondary allowed several explosive completions that swung momentum. Both teams are coming off losses, and while the Chargers' offensive firepower poses a threat, the Vikings have the chance to exploit weaknesses in Los Angeles' run defense and use their own offensive weapons to control the game. I'm picking the Vikings to win and improve to 4-3, while the Chargers drop to 4-4. The Dolphins come into this matchup reeling after a 31-6 loss to the Browns that laid bare their offensive dysfunction. Tua Tagovailoa threw for only 100 yards and 3 interceptions before being benched. The team converted just 1 of 13 third down attempts. They turned the ball over 4 times, and rookie Quinn Ewers stepped in late for his debut. Defensively, Miami allowed rookie Quinshon Judkins to score 3 touchdowns, cementing a season full of growing concern. The Falcons, meanwhile, dropped a 20-10 contest to the 49ers on Sunday Night Football, as Christian McCaffrey rushed for 129 yards and 2 touchdowns, while Atlanta mustered just 10 points despite Bijan Robinson gaining 92 yards on the ground and quarterback Michael Penix Jr. passing for 241 yards. Atlanta's offense showed flashes but couldn't sustain drives, and their offensive line was outmatched by the 49ers front, while defensively they failed to contain the ground game and big plays in the fourth quarter. With Miami's turnover woes and stalled offense offset by Atlanta's balanced but inconsistent attack, an opportunity to exploit the Dolphins' vulnerabilities, I'm picking the Falcons to win and move to 4-3, while the Dolphins fall further to 1-7. The Bears entered this matchup confident after a convincing 26-14 win over the Saints, where Caleb Williams delivered another steady performance with 221 passing yards and a touchdown, showing poise in the pocket and timing with his receivers. DeAndre Swift powered the ground game with 124 rushing yards, consistently gaining tough yards and keeping the chains moving, while Rome Odunze hauled in 6 catches for 87 yards to help sustain drives. Chicago's defense shined as well, forcing 4 turnovers, including 3 interceptions off Spencer Rattler, and limiting New Orleans to under 50 rushing yards. Tremaine Edmonds and Montez Sweat led a pass rush that consistently pressured the quarterback and disrupted timing, though the Bears' struggles finishing drives, settling for 4 Jake Moody field goals, remain a concern for sustained offensive consistency. The Ravens, meanwhile, come off a bye, still reeling from a 17-3 loss to the Rams in Week 6, where Cooper Rush and Tyler Huntley struggled to generate offense without Lamar Jackson, producing under 200 total yards and failing to find the end zone. Baltimore's defense fought hard early, but eventually wore down from the lack of offensive support, allowing the Rams to control the tempo in the line of scrimmage. With Chicago finding a solid balance between a dynamic running game, efficient passing, and a defense capable of creating turnovers, and Baltimore still searching for offensive rhythm, I'm taking the Bears to move to 5-2, while the Ravens slide further to 1-6. The Jets come into this matchup reeling after yet another frustrating loss, this time a 13-6 defeat to the Panthers that highlighted their ongoing offensive collapse. Justin Fields struggled to get anything going before being benched for Tyrod Taylor, who didn't fare much better, throwing 2 costly interceptions that killed potential scoring drives. Protection issues were once again glaring as the Panthers racked up 6 sacks, 2 from Derek Brown, and consistently forced the Jets' quarterbacks into hurried throws. Breece Hall managed a few solid runs to keep drives alive, but the offense failed to generate any explosive plays. Defensively, New York did everything it could to stay in the game, with Quinnen Williams creating interior pressure and Jermaine Johnson making key stops on the edge, but extended time on the field wore them down late. The Bengals, meanwhile, are coming off a thrilling 33-31 win over the Steelers that showcased their offensive resurgence. Joe Flacco looked sharp, throwing for over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns while spreading the ball effectively. Jamar Chase dominated with a high-volume performance, and running back Chase Brown provided much-needed balance on the ground. Cincinnati's defense gave up its share of big plays, but came up clutch with a late turnover to seal the win. With the Bengals heating up and the Jets still spiraling offensively, I'm picking Cincinnati to take this one, improving to 4-4 while the Jets drop to 0-8. The Bills enter this matchup refreshed after their bye week, but still stinging from a 24-14 loss to the Falcons that exposed some troubling inconsistencies. Josh Allen threw for 180 yards and 2 touchdowns, but was picked off twice and sacked 4 times, as Buffalo's offensive line struggled to contain Atlanta's relentless pressure. James Cook provided a bright spot with 87 rushing yards on 17 carries, though the Bills never fully committed to the ground game, and the passing attack looked disjointed. The bye week came at the perfect time, offering Buffalo a chance to regroup, tighten its pass protection, and re-establish rhythm with its receiving corps. On the other hand, the Panthers are coming off a gritty 13-6 victory over the Jets that showcased their defensive tenacity. Carolina's front 7 dominated the trenches, recording 6 sacks, 2 by Derek Brown, and consistently collapsing the pocket to disrupt both Justin Fields and Tyrod Taylor. Bryce Young played within himself, completing key throws when needed and avoiding turnovers, while Rico Dowdle again carried the offensive load, grinding out tough yards to control the tempo. While the Panthers' defense has been a force, their offense continues to struggle with sustained drives against top-tier competition. The Bills, meanwhile, have had extra rest and remain the more dynamic team when clicking. I'm picking Buffalo to rebound and take this one, improving to 5-2, while the Panthers fall back to 4-4. The 49ers entered this matchup coming off a gritty 20-10 win over the Falcons, a game that showcased their defensive identity and ground-and-pound dominance. Christian McCaffrey carried the load with 129 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns, while also hauling in 72 receiving yards, effectively serving as the engine of San Francisco's offense. Quarterback Mac Jones managed the game efficiently but struggled to stretch the field, finishing with just 152 yards through the air as the passing attack once again appeared limited without consistent separation from his receivers. Defensively, the 49ers controlled the trenches, registering 5 sacks and forcing a key turnover late in the second quarter that swung momentum in their favor. However, lapses in pass protection and a pair of costly offensive penalties kept the game closer than it should have been. The Texans, meanwhile, fell 27-19 to the Seahawks in a frustrating outing where flashes of potential were overshadowed by missed opportunities. C.J. Stroud threw for 229 yards and a touchdown but was sacked 4 times, and Houston's offensive line struggled to hold up against Seattle's pressure. The defense, though opportunistic with 4 takeaways, couldn't keep the Seahawks off the field for long stretches, and the run game managed just 61 total yards. Both teams have identifiable strengths: the 49ers' elite run game and suffocating defense, and the Texans' scrappy, turnover-driven unit. But San Francisco's physicality and depth should prevail. I'm picking the 49ers to win and move to 6-2, while the Texans fall to 2-5. The Browns enter this matchup riding the momentum of a commanding 31-6 win over the Dolphins, a game where their defense looked the sharpest it has all season. Quinshon Judkins powered the offense with 3 touchdowns, including a bruising 30-yard run that broke the game open in the third quarter, while Cleveland's front 7 wreaked havoc, forcing 2 fumbles and picking off a hurried Tua Tagovailoa pass that set up another score. The Browns are leaning heavily into their ground-and-pound identity, and when it works, they look like a tough, disciplined team. However, their passing attack still lacks rhythm, with protection issues and inconsistent quarterback play preventing them from fully capitalizing on short field opportunities. On the other side, the Patriots rolled past the Titans 31-13, showcasing one of their most complete performances of the year. Drake May was surgical, completing 21 of 23 passes for 222 yards and 2 touchdowns, while Kayshon Boutte and Ramondre Stevenson provided steady production to keep the chains moving. Defensively, New England created chaos with a strip sack return for a touchdown and multiple red zone stops, suffocating Tennessee's offense throughout. While the Browns physically could make this one interesting early, the Patriots' balance and efficiency should prove too much down the stretch. I've got New England improving to 6-2, while Cleveland drops to 2-6 in another frustrating outing defined by stalled drives and defensive fatigue. The Giants are coming into this matchup falling in a heartbreaker to the Broncos 33-32 after giving up 33 points in the fourth quarter. Quarterback Jackson Dart passed for 386 yards and 2 touchdowns but threw a late interception, and missed opportunities in the kicking game, specifically a missed extra point, compounded the collapse. Their running attack was inconsistent, with no back able to sustain drives, and the defense, which had played well early, couldn't contain the Broncos' balanced attack late. The Eagles, meanwhile, are rallying after a 28-22 victory over the Vikings, where Jalen Hurts threw for 326 yards and 3 touchdowns, connecting repeatedly with Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, who combined for 245 receiving yards and 2 scores, though the team struggled to finish drives in the red zone, converting only 1 of 6 opportunities. Philadelphia's rushing attack provided some balance, but wasn't consistently able to control the clock, forcing the Eagles to lean heavily on their passing game. Defensively, they allowed 387 total yards and gave up a pair of explosive plays, yet timely turnovers, including a pick 6 by Jalen Hunt, helped shift momentum and ultimately secure the win. Both teams are coming off high-effort contests that expose both strengths and weaknesses, and while the Giants showed flashes of offensive firepower and resilience, the Eagles' ability to generate big plays through the air and force turnovers gives them a clear edge in this matchup. I'm picking the Eagles to win and improve to 6-2, while the Giants drop to 2-6. The Buccaneers entered this matchup after a tough 24-9 loss to the Lions, a game in which Baker Mayfield completed 28 of 50 passes for 228 yards and a touchdown, but the offense was stymied by Detroit's dominant run defense and lost set-piece momentum after wide receiver Mike Evans exited early with a concussion and shoulder injury. Tampa Bay was outgained 379-251, and the lack of explosive plays was evident as they managed only 4 first downs in the first half. Meanwhile, the Saints are reeling after a 26-14 defeat to the Bears that dropped them to 1-6. Quarterback Spencer Rattler threw for 233 yards and 2 touchdowns, but also tossed 3 interceptions, and New Orleans surrendered 222 rushing yards and 2 rushing scores as Chicago's offense leaned into ground dominance. Both teams are coming off lopsided losses and searching for answers. Tampa Bay's offense needs to regain playmaking ability and protect its stars, while the Saints must fix their turnover and run defensive woes. In this matchup, I'm going with the Buccaneers to get back on track and improve to 6-2, while the Saints fall to 1-7. The Titans continue to fight uphill battles, coming off a 31-13 loss to the Patriots in Week 7, where Cam Ward threw for 255 yards and a touchdown, but also had a critical interception and a lost fumble that led directly to points for New England, while the offense struggled to find rhythm behind a struggling offensive line and limited production in the running game. Defensively, Tennessee was overmatched as New England's receivers consistently found soft spots in coverage, and the front seven couldn't generate pressure, leaving the secondary vulnerable in key moments. Injuries and personnel gaps further hampered the Titans' ability to adjust and keep the game competitive. On the other side, the Colts rolled to a 38-24 victory over the Chargers, showcasing a balanced offensive attack with Jonathan Taylor rushing for 94 yards and 3 touchdowns, while Daniel Jones orchestrated multiple scoring drives efficiently, spreading the ball to his top targets and avoiding turnovers. Indianapolis's defense stepped up at critical points, limiting the Chargers on third downs and forcing key punts that allowed the offense to control the tempo. The contrast between Tennessee's struggles to sustain drives and defend against efficient offenses versus Indianapolis's ability to execute in all phases is stark. Given the Colts' momentum and the Titans' ongoing challenges, I'm picking Indianapolis to win this matchup, improving to 7-1, while Tennessee drops to 1-7. The Cowboys come into this matchup after a dominant 44-22 victory over the Commanders, where Dak Prescott connected for multiple touchdown passes with CeeDee Lamb leading the way in his return from injury, while tight end Jake Ferguson and running back Javonte Williams added scores on the ground and through the air. Dallas's defense was equally impactful, forcing turnovers and limiting big plays, with DaRon Bland returning an interception for a touchdown and rookie linebacker Shamar James forcing a fumble, and kicker Brandon Aubrey added 3 field goals, including a 61-yarder. Meanwhile, the Denver Broncos enter this matchup after a historic 33-32 comeback over the Giants, overcoming a 19-0 deficit with quarterback Bo Nix orchestrating 5 consecutive scoring drives, including 2 rushing touchdowns and key connections with Troy Franklin, Courtland Sutton, and Marvin Mims Jr. J.K. Dobbins contributed explosively on the ground, and linebacker Justin Sternad led a defense that forced a critical interception and pressured the Giants at pivotal moments. Kicker Will Lutz capped the comeback with a game-winning 39-yard field goal as time expired. With the Cowboys' balanced attack and stout defense matched against the Broncos' resilience and late-game explosiveness, I'm picking the Cowboys to win this one, moving to 4-3-1, while Denver falls to 5-3. The Packers come into this matchup after a dramatic 27-23 win over the Cardinals, where Jordan Love showed poise under pressure, completing 19 of 29 passes for 179 yards and a touchdown, including a clutch connection with Tucker Kraft on a critical conversion, while the running game was balanced with Josh Jacobs contributing multiple key carries and 2 rushing touchdowns that helped seal the comeback. And the defense created disruption with Micah Parsons recording 3 sacks and several tackles for loss to keep Arizona from mounting a late rally. The Steelers, on the other hand, fell just short in a 33-31 nail-biter against the Bengals, with their offense demonstrating explosive potential as a group, including multiple big gains from their receiving core, but struggling to sustain drives in crucial moments, which allowed Cincinnati to hit a game-winning field goal with 7 seconds left. Defensively, the Steelers created opportunities with timely pressures and tight coverage, but couldn't force the decisive turnover. Both teams enter this matchup after high-intensity contests, and while Green Bay showed resilience in the ability to make key plays in crunch time, Pittsburgh's offensive versatility and capacity to generate big plays across both the pass and run game could tilt the matchup in their favor, especially if they capitalize on Green Bay's occasional breakdowns in coverage. I'm picking the Steelers to win and move to 5-2, while the Packers would drop to 4-2-1. The Kansas City Chiefs enter this matchup after a commanding 31-0 victory over the Las Vegas Raiders, where quarterback Patrick Mahomes threw for 286 yards and 3 touchdowns before exiting in the third quarter, and wide receiver Rashee Rice, returning from suspension, caught 2 touchdown passes, showcasing the team's offensive depth. Defensively, the Chiefs were dominant, holding the Raiders to just 95 total yards and 3 first downs, with Geno Smith managing only 67 passing yards. The Chiefs controlled the game with 434 total yards, 30 first downs, and over 42 minutes of possession, demonstrating a complete team performance. On the other hand, the Washington Commanders suffered a 44-22 loss to the Dallas Cowboys, with starting quarterback Jayden Daniels exiting the game in the third quarter due to a hamstring injury after a strip sack fumble. Before his departure, Daniels had completed 12 of 22 passes for 156 yards, a passing touchdown, and a rushing touchdown. Backup quarterback Marcus Mariota struggled in relief, throwing an interception returned 68 yards for a touchdown by DaRon Bland. Despite a touchdown run by Chris Rodriguez Jr., the Commanders couldn't recover after falling behind, facing challenges with a depleted roster and defensive breakdowns. Considering the Chiefs' dominant performance and the Commanders' recent struggles, I'm picking Kansas City to win and improve to 5-3, while Washington falls to 3-5.